This, oh, good evening. Good evening. I'm so impolite. But my mind was on my subject. This week, we have seen how we pass from our human estate to our metaphysical, and from our metaphysical to the start of our spiritual. You'll remember that in the human estate, just to sum up, we were a consciousness made up of good and evil, and that good and evil was manifested both on the material plane and the mental plane. And in this state, the two powers, good and evil, were always contending with each other, and evil seems to have the upper hand most of the time, because most of the world's history has been dotted with wars, famine, man's inhumanity to man. But as you get up into the metaphysical state of consciousness, you get into a realm which is termed mind over matter, or good over evil, or God over error. And in this consciousness, you still have two powers, but the power of good is the greater power. And even when evil touches you, you can resort to the good and overcome the evil. Sometimes this is thought of as using the power of truth to overcome error. It's not a good explanation of it, because it really couldn't be possible for a human being to use God. But the idea is that we at least turn to God, and then God does something about the evils of the world. As you pass from there into the first stage of spiritual development, you become aware of a something, capital S, something. This the Master calls the Father within. This Paul calls the indwelling Christ. This Lao Tzu called Tao. This has been called the Spirit of God in man, the Savior. At any rate, you identify it as a presence. You cannot define it, you cannot analyze it, you've never seen it, but you do feel that there is more to life than you yourself. In other words, you do have an awareness that there is a greater power than yourself, and often that it does things for you. The more you live with the idea of an indwelling presence, the more you abide in the truth that there is a Father within you to do the works, the more you can remember that I live, yet not I, Christ liveth my life, the more relaxing your human experience becomes, the more responsibility you drop from yourself, and you find that the greater burden of your experience is carried by this. Drop your burdens at my feet. you have the sense of dropping burdens. You have the sense of this presence going before you. You have this sense of an overshadowing presence or a spirit within. This idea of a presence or power may present itself to you in dozens of different ways. It may be to you the Father within that doeth the works. It may be in the thought that he that is within me is greater than he that is in the world, or he perfecteth that which concerneth me. Do you see how all of these passages indicate that there is something of a transcendental nature, of a spiritual nature, something that no one has ever been able to define, but oh, so many have experienced. And that in that state of consciousness, life begins to be not only a pleasure, it also becomes more successful, because you have access to this Father within. You have the reliance on this indwelling Spirit, or Christ, or Son of God. And it is as if here, within range of my own consciousness, there is infinite presence and infinite power to which I can attune myself, or at one myself, and let this flow forth. Let this come into expression. Let its presence and its power go before me to prepare the way, to prepare mansions, to make the crooked places straight. As long as the realization abides that this presence, this Spirit, is closer to me than breathing and nearer than hands and feet, and that it is available to me, whether in health or sickness, in death or life, in purity or sin, I am all right, because having it closer than breathing, I realize that the place whereon I stand is holy ground, and always having recourse to this inner consciousness, inner awareness, inner self, I can hardly go far wrong. I can hardly be misgoverned. It's almost an impossibility to know lack or limitation. Scripture says that I have never seen a righteous man begging bread. And a righteous man is not merely a man who obeys the Ten Commandments. The righteous man is really the one whose righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees. Now, if you are not familiar with your history of the Jewish people of the time of the Master, you may not understand that passage, but you really should. There were 3 sects of Hebrews at that time: the scribes and the Pharisees, who comprised the temple or synagogue, and there were the Essenes, who were somewhat of outcasts. They lived separate and apart from the other Hebrews, had nothing in common with them, and lived an entirely different sort of life. Now, the Master was of those Essenes, but he knew that the scribes and the Pharisees are righteous. They live up to the letter of the law of the temple. They never disobey the Hebrew laws, dietary laws, temple laws, tithing laws, sacrificing laws, holidays, feast days, fast days. They never disobey them. They are rigid in the following of the law. Knowing this, the Master said, your righteousness must exceed this. And then, of course, he illustrated the wrongness of obeying the laws of sacrifice, of spending all of the time in the temple, worshiping in holy mountains or holy cities, and turned us to another form of worship, worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth, not worshiping the Father in temples or cities, not worshiping the Father in tithes or sacrifices, worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth. Now, of course, this doesn't clarify itself to the human mind, and so you really must be a person of prayer, a person of inner life, to learn how you can have a righteousness greater than obeying the law. He gave us some few tips on that. Not praying for your friends, but praying for your enemies. Never going to the altar to pray while you have aught against any man, or any man has aught against you. Never go to pray until you are at peace with your fellow man, until you have made peace with your fellow man. Forgive his wrong 70 times 7. Do not resist evil. If your brother wants to steal your coat, give him your vest too. He showed how we can worship in spirit and in truth, not by an act of worship itself, but by living a worshipful life. Actually, his teaching on that point comes down to this: you are only worshiping God when you are loving your fellow man. In other words, there is no God to worship. There is no God to love. There is no God to serve, separate and apart from your fellow man. You are only loving God as you love your fellow man. You are only worshiping God when you are serving your fellow man. And the Master summed this all up in those wonderful, wonderful passages. When I was in prison, he visited me. When I was sick, he comforted me. When I was naked, he clothed me. When I was an hungered, he fed me. When, Master, did we see all that and do all that? Inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Because there is no me except your brethren. And again, when I was in prison, ye did not visit me. When I was naked, ye did not clothe me. When I was an hungered, ye did not feed me. When did all that happen? We don't know anything about that either. Inasmuch as ye did it not unto the least of these, my brethren, ye did it not unto me. Because there is no me, there is no Christ, separate and apart from man. There is no God separate and apart from man, because God has manifested himself as man. God has revealed himself on earth as man. Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me. Did God have only one child? No. If he could say, thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me, and if he could say, thy Father and my Father, he was talking about the universal relationship. When I see you, I see the Father that created you and sent you forth into expression, and you and your Father are one. Therefore, in serving you, I am serving my Father. In loving you, I am loving my Father. But if I walk around saying, oh, I love God whom I have not seen, but I do not love my fellow man whom I have seen, the rest of the passage, you are a liar. That's what it says in Scripture. You are a liar. And it is true. There is no God up in the sky or down below. The kingdom of God is within you. That ought to be clear to everybody. And therefore, if I am to seek the kingdom of God, I'd better look around inside of you to find it. For that is where it is. And if I wish to show my love for God, I had better show my love to you, because that's where I'll find the God to love. And if I want to serve God, I had better learn to serve you, because in serving you, I have served the Father that sent you and that sent me. You will notice that in practicing the presence, the chapter Love Thy Neighbor, and in the art of spiritual healing, the relationship of oneness, you come to the two chapters that are used a great deal in all of our so-called problems of human relationships, whether we are dealing with corporation and labor relationships or employer-employee relationships or family relationships at any level. We refer our students to those two chapters. And the reason is that if you can follow them carefully and probably read a little bit between the lines, you will discover a great secret. You will discover that I am you, and that what I do unto you, I am doing unto myself. Eventually, if you remain on the spiritual path, you will come up to the great revelation, which is that there is only one God, and I am He. And that means there is only one God, whether Joel says, I am He, or any one of you or all of you say, I am He, for there is only one I, one ego, one selfhood. And that is why in mystical literature, selfhood used in that way, or self used in that way, is spelt with a capital S. This I have seen, this I have experienced in my work, that what I do to you, I do to myself, whether for good or for evil. The good that I do unto you has a way of returning unto me. The evil that I would do unto anyone has a way of returning unto me. And the reason is, there is but one self. It is as if I took money out of my right-hand pocket and put it into my left-hand pocket, even if I mail it out to you or to the charities or to the benevolences or to our work or some other work. In other words, regardless of where I send $1, it ends up in my own pocket. And the reason is there is only one selfhood. There is only one being, and everything that I am doing to you, I am doing unto myself. And everything that I am doing unto my enemies, I am doing unto myself. And that's why I take time out every day to forgive them. I take time out every day to forgive all those who have aught against me or my nation or my race or my religion. Why? I'm not a good man, I'm just a smart one. I'm forgiving myself. I have learned there is only one self. There is only one divine being. God has manifested himself or itself, life itself on earth, as your life and mine. Anything that I would do to harm your life has its reaction on mine. Now, out of this came the karmic law, that which in the Orient is described as karmic law, but in our world is called as ye sow, so shall ye reap. That is where this came from. Anything that you do to another must return unto you. And you may think it's hidden, but it isn't hidden in the one place where ultimately it is settled, and that is within you. And perhaps you don't think the Master was wise when he said, do not do your benevolences publicly where you can be seen of men, because you will gain their favor, but you will lose God. In other words, and this is something, if you're going to remain on a mystical path, this is something you must abide by. Close your eyes so that you're in the darkness, and then realize, I seem to be in here all alone. And anything I think or do, nobody but me is going to know about. And now forget it. Because right in there with you is yourself. Your own being. There isn't a thing that you can think or do that isn't known to yourself. And that yourself doesn't return unto you. It's as simple as that. You may think that you're hidden, but the Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. The divine law that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. You couldn't give away a 5-cent piece without yourself knowing it and reflecting it back into your experience immediately. You couldn't take 5 cents from anyone without yourself knowing it and immediately beginning this restitution through karmic law. There is a karmic law that eventually makes us pay for our wrongs and rewards us for our right. It isn't God doing it. It is the law that operates within us when we put the law in operation. And the reason is we are the Father and we are the Son. And that which the Son does, the Father is aware of, because the Father and the Son are one. Now, as you begin to perceive this, remember, you have been ascending. You have been ascending. As you begin to perceive this, you begin to understand, and I won't go back before the Master, although this is known before the Master, but I will go back only to the Master and show you that the real reason he was crucified was that he revealed to the people a truth that had always been hidden in the church. When Moses discovered the truth, I am that I am, he immediately put a veil on it. He never allowed anyone but Aaron and probably some of the high priests to know the secret that he had discovered. There is no other God but me. I am the Father and I am the Son. We are one. I am he. It was for this reason that when he went to pray, he always took Aaron with him, to be sure that none of the others came up to watch, because the idea was that he was going up to commune and to talk to God. And of course, he couldn't let anyone know that God was inside of him and that he was that. The others would want to see two, and there weren't any two, there was just one. Now, throughout the Hebrew years and centuries, this secret, of course, was known to many of the great Hebrew prophets. Isaiah reveals it in his work. But we come to the Master, and we discover that this is the very secret that he was trying to tell the public. Knowest thou not? Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me. Before Abraham was, I am with you, and I will be with you unto the end of the world. I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. I am come that ye might have life, and that ye might have it more abundantly. I am the meat, the wine, the water. Master, the disciples say, shall we go to the city and get thee some meat? No, I have meat the world knows not of. I have meat the world knows not of. He was trying to tell the world, but they couldn't hear. O Jerusalem, I would take you under my wings and tell you this great secret, but ye would not. I have meat the world knows not of. I am the meat. I am the wine. I can give you living waters. If you drink the waters I give you, you will never thirst again. You eat the meat that I give you, you will never hunger again. And the whole secret is in the word I. Not once does he say Jesus. Always he says I. The whole secret is in the word I. Now just think, when this is revealed to you, that I in the midst of you am mighty. I in the midst of you am God, and beside me there is no other. I in the midst of you am come, that you might have this abundant life. In fact, I am your life. I am your bread and your meat and your wine and your water. I go before you to prepare mansions for you. I go before you to make the crooked places straight. And all you have to think of is I. And all you have to do is close your eyes and I am there. I in the midst of me is mighty. Are there two I's inside of me? An I God and an I Joel? Or is there only one I, and that is the I that I am? And that is the I that I am, and I am that I am. And therefore, I is the sacred word. I is the secret word. Don't try to make a human being into God. Just make I God. And then you will realize, and this runs throughout the entire Infinite Way teaching, there are no powers external to you that can act upon you, for I am God. All power is given unto me. All power. God has given us dominion over everything in the skies, in the air, and beneath the waters, and beneath the earth. God has given it to I. That I that is the individual I within you and me is God ordained, God empowered, and has God dominion. God, the great I am, has given to the I that I am, God-given dominion, and not given because there is no two-ness, there's oneness, and I am that one. And so the moment I know that the infinite divine I has embodied itself as this individual I which I am, all power flows out from me. No power acts upon me. Well, to begin with, where would it come from? The I of you is God. So no evil power could come through you. Well, now where will it come from? Since there is no power except the power which you embody. That which we call evil or evil presence or evil anything, evil law, isn't power. And the reason it isn't power is that I is the all and only power. And I functions out from within me. It does not act upon me. Therefore, if I'm lost in the desert, the I that I am will bring me out. If I am on a rubber boat in the middle of the ocean, the I that I am will draw safety and security and food and all the rest of these things unto me. And whatever my business may be, my business, my art, my profession, my science, whatever these may be, I need only relax and rest in the assurance that I has brought it into experience and I prosper it, I finance it, I share it, I serve it, I sends it forth into expression, and I cares for it from the beginning to the end. Look not unto man, but look unto me and be saved. Cease ye from depending on man whose breath is in his nostril, and rely on the I that I am. And then whatever business I have placed you in will prosper. Whatever your art or profession, it will prosper, as long as it is not violating a law of love. Don't think for a minute that you can be in the business of poisoning a man's mind and be prospered by the I that I am. On the contrary, the karmic law will go to operate on you. Don't think for a moment that you can serve anything to man that will harm him or destroy him and have it prospered by God. On the contrary, the moment you turn to a spiritual book to read even, you will find you've set karmic law in motion to destroy you or to destroy your business. If it doesn't destroy your business, it'll destroy you. Because once you turn to the spiritual path, you must eventually come to the recognition that this I that I am is the law unto my being. And I can't choose how it shall operate. I have to let it govern my outer experience. And yet it is the selfhood of my being. Now, it is for this reason that I have spoken of prayer as an attitude. It has nothing to do with words or thoughts, true prayer, because you can't fool God. If everybody would know who prays that you can't fool God, praying would stop. Praying in the sense of telling God or asking God. You can't fool God. When you are in prayer, you have to fulfill the functions of prayer, the conditions. You have to fulfill the conditions of prayer. You have to be at peace with your fellow man. Now, you're not at peace with your fellow man if you're in the business of serving him a drug or vodka. You're not at peace with your fellow man if you are selling him bullets. You are not at peace with your fellow man if your product is intended to deceive or defraud. And so you can imagine how many prayers must be wrong. I think you could count a few million if you just look at the television. You must wonder what their prayers must be like if this is true, or what answers they must get to prayer. No, can you not see that when you go to God, you have to go clean of heart, clean of spirit, and that means with only love in your heart to your fellow man. Inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. Therefore, prayer merely means this. As if you opened your hands, your arms. I've checked my guns at the door. I bear no ill will toward anyone. I come here to bless as well as to be blessed. I come here in fellowship, to love, to serve, to share, to cooperate. Never forgetting that our benevolences are really our service and love to God. Never forgetting that to worship God in spirit and in truth means only to worship God in our relationship to each other, by living in the spirit of truth and love with each other. We cannot prevent some others from acting in wrong manner toward us, nor is it our function to try to reform them. Our function is, however, not to react to it and not to return evil for evil. This too is in the Master's work. Do not return evil for evil, for then again you've cut yourself off from the possibility of answered prayer. You must return good for evil. You have to come to God as pure as the teaching of the Master indicates in every way. Then you have no need for words or thoughts, because God, that is the I within me, is omniscience. It is the all-knowing. Therefore, the intelligence of my own being knows what things I have need of. This I that I am knows what things I have need of. And its good pleasure is to give me the kingdom. Therefore, in the recognition that the I of my being is already omniscience, I do not have to pray in words or thoughts. I merely feel, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. Let me be receptive to God, not trying to talk up to. Secondly, the I that I am is omnipotence. Now, I know how many thousand times you've used the word, but do you know the meaning of it? Do you know that it does not mean that God is a great power? Do you know that it means God is the only power? All power. Omnipotence is all power. Therefore, there is no power of evil. And when we say God, you remember I'm saying I? I am omnipotence. The I of my being is omnipotence. I do not have to go to holy mountains or holy temples. The I of my being, the I which I am, my own selfhood, is omnipotence, all power. Therefore, there are no external powers to act on me. And if there were external powers at all, they'd be part of that omnipotence which I am. Therefore, they'd be in cooperation with me. And finally, I am omniscience. I am omnipresence. Now just think. We have gone through the exercise of searching ourselves from the feet right straight up to the head, and we found that I am not there. We know that there is no part of the body in which I am confined. We know that surgery has been done from head to foot, and no one has ever discovered I in there. Now, if you ponder this seriously, you will come to the conclusion that you are not confined in your body. Well, then, are you dangling around in space here over your head? No, you are omnipresence. I am omnipresence. I am here, and I am there, and I am everywhere. The place whereon thou standest is holy ground, for I am there. I am omnipresence. I am here, and I am there. And many of you have had the experience of receiving me in your own homes when I have been thousands of miles away and being instructed and sometimes being healed. Many of you have had that experience. It is an experience that is happening virtually every day of the week. Why? Because I know myself. I know who I am. And I know that I am not born and I will not die, for I am that I am. I know that. I know for a long, long time that I am omnipresence, that I am equally at home in any part of the world because I am throughout the world. I embrace this world in my consciousness. I embrace you in my consciousness, a whole room full of you. Not only a whole room full of you, but as many rooms full as you can think of across the United States and Canada and England and the continent of Europe and Africa and India and Australia and New Zealand. I embrace you in my consciousness, for I and you are one. I am in you, and you are in me, and we are in God, for we are all one. We are the I am. I am you, and you are me, for we are one. We are one in our spiritual relationship. And as I serve you, I am serving me. As I work with you, I am working with me. And the greatest proof of it all is this: there never has been an infinite way class that I've conducted that I didn't come out of knowing more than when I went in. And it must always be that way, because the more that pours forth from us, the more is pouring back into us. For the bread that I cast on the water must return unto me, for there is only one. Is there any other beside me? I know not any. I am he, and I am thou. And I am in you, and you are in me, for we are in God. Omnipresence. We are all in and of one presence. Omnipresence. Now, eventually, when you reach that, you have passed the stage of the Father within me, or he that is within me. You will use it in teaching. You will use it in conversation with others. Because one thing is certain, you're going to end up in a straitjacket if you talk about I to the world. They will certainly say, this crazy fool says he's God. Bad enough to believe you're Napoleon Bonaparte, but to think you're God. There was a man who sent out a letter to all of his students one time saying, beware of those Goldsmith books. He thinks he's God. but I am, and thou art. Yes, I am, and thou art, for we are one, and only inasmuch as you are serving me are you serving Christ, for I am he. Only inasmuch as I am serving you am I serving Christ, for this is your identity. The Son of God, one with God. I, the Father, and I, the Son, are one. God and his Christ is one. And this one is you. And this one is the one that I am. But this is mystical awareness. If you would try to teach this, you'd be foolish. When you are working with a body of students, as I have been working with you 16 years, consciousness has evolved to the place where I can impart it, not teach it, because it will do you no good if you only learn it. It will do you no good if you learn it. You must embody it. You must have the feel of its rightness. You must embrace it within your own being so that you can feel that I am. And in feeling that I am, you'll only know whether it's true or not when you begin to see your relationship to other people. If you really have changed so that you really know now there's no use in me worrying about serving God or honoring God or worshiping God. Now I know that my friends and my enemies are the only God I'm ever going to know. They are the only Christ I'm ever going to be able to serve. And when your life begins to mold itself into that, you will know that you have not learnt the absolute truth, you have experienced the absolute truth. Now, you will not experience it by ever having a feeling that you're God. I can tell you that. You won't even know it by feeling spiritual. I can tell you that too. I've often wondered what it felt like to be spiritual. Some people write me how spiritual they feel, and I wish I could feel it once. I don't ever feel spiritual, I just feel me. Just feel my normal, natural self, which most of the time is pretty good-natured, but some of the times needs a bit of overseeing. But the point is that while I don't feel God-like and I don't feel spiritual, I do not only feel, but I know that every single thought I think and every deed I do to any man or woman or child, I'm doing unto myself. That I know. I know that my only way of serving God is in serving my fellow man. Be assured, if it were possible, I'd just go out to Hawaii, and I have a nice little lot out by the waterfront, and I'd build me a little bungalow, a little one, no, a big one, my wife says. And I would just sit there and love God supremely. But I can't. This is the only way I can love God, by doing the work that is given me to do. And the work that is given me to do is to impart this. There is only one self. There is only one being. The I of me is the I of you. The I that I am is the I that you am. There's only one am. And that one am is God is I am. All that God is, I am. And as you dwell in this, and only sacredly and secretly, I, and then begin to see that every individual is I, you can't fear anymore. You can't. You can only love more, but you can't fear. And never again will you ever know such a thing as bias, bigotry, prejudice. It doesn't make any difference how stupid the others are, or how greedy, or anything else. It can only make you smile. Oh, if you only knew your true identity, how you would change. That is the thought that comes when I read the papers or see these things in television. Oh, if you only knew who you are. If only you had listened to the Master 2,000 years ago when he was giving you the secret of your true identity. When he was saying to you, knowest thou not? Knowest thou not? If only we had listened then, how many lifetimes we would have saved ourselves of human woes. But at least we're on the way. Consciousness is evolving. Probably each one of us could look back 10, 20, 30, 40, some 50 years and see what an evolution of consciousness there was from that time to now, even in yourself or myself. So you see that spiritual teaching must be taken by degrees. You must come into it and you must lead others into it gently. You cannot start them off by saying, I am God. It's ludicrous. There isn't a mentality that can make the jump from being the worm in the dust that most of us are as humans to trying to call ourselves I am in one jump. We must come up through human betterment, finally through the realization of the indwelling spirit or presence, and then finally to the realization, I am He. I am that I am. I and my Father are one. All that the Father has is mine, and this I that I am is come to my individual expression, that I might have life and that I might have it more abundantly. This saves you from looking out there to somebody else to be your Savior. This saves you all the heartaches of looking out there and ultimately finding clay feet. This makes it possible for you to retire within and realize, as I learned to tabernacle with the I that I am, with my inner selfhood, with my own withinness, with the divinity of my own being, I will know that all law is embodied in me, spiritual law. All life is, I am the embodiment of all life, spiritual life. Then do you not see that infinity is the measure of our substance? We are not limited. We only limit ourselves by calling ourselves I, Joel, when really and truly I, Joel, and I, the Father, is one. And all the Father hath, the Son has. Then I'm not limited to what I can see in my bank book or pocketbook. I'm limited to the infinite invisible. I can almost see this as a reservoir of water. We might look at it and for a moment, because it's large, think that it can't run dry, but it can. If it weren't for the rain and the snow falling on those mountains and pouring down into the reservoir would soon be all. And so it is with us. Regardless of who we think we are or how wealthy we think we are or how healthy, believe me, we are using it up like the prodigal son unless we know our true identity. When we know we are fed by the infinite invisible, and then ultimately when we realize I'm not fed by it, I am it. I'm not fed by spiritual bread, wine, and water. I am the bread, the wine, and the water. When you come to that, the whole of this world drops away, and then you ought to hear the Master shout, I have overcome the world. The devil cometh and findeth nothing in me. Why? Because I am. Thank you.